Okay, and we're live. And the reason why that always takes me some time is because when I start YouTube, if I don't wait until it loads and mute it, I get feedback. And it sounds like I have you talking to me in the future and in the past at the same time. It's very weird. So that's what takes me a while. But where everything is live here, YouTube and recording in general. So the first committee I have is Public Works. If we're okay to get started.
I can't get my Public Works document to download. I've been sitting here clicking on it.
Okay. Okay, I can show you some of it. Actually, what I was going to start with. We're going to talk about the capital improvements anyway. So I was going to show you what I had handed out to everybody on screen. So I'll do the best I can, Mr. Watkins, going back and forth with this. Well, the first item I have under my report is the capital improvements plan. Every committee is going to be talking about this month. And just to make sure everybody understands what's going on here, I'll take a couple minutes now to explain it, and then I won't go into as much detail for the other three committees tonight. You can read my notes, which include the reminder from last month on the process and how we deal with it. But basically, everyone got a copy of all the projects, and what I did was summarize them in this spreadsheet. Now, just to be clear, this is not as critical as the general fund budget from a timing point of view. You're not required to approve a capital plan, but most good municipalities do one because you want to prepare for the future, especially for large projects, capital equipment, whatever, building related stuff, things that we define as 5 years or more in life and $5,000 or more in value. So it's a little bit simpler from that point of view. What essentially each committee is called on to do is take a look at the projects that were submitted. And again, here's a summary of them for Public Works. And essentially, rather than go into specific, a long detailed discussion on each item, the idea is to take a look at them and see, does it make sense to have this item on the 5-year plan? If not, should it be eliminated? If not, should it be changed? If it should be changed, what should it be changed to? But the bottom line is, once you do approve this budget in December with the other budgets, it's still very flexible in 2023, because each of the projects that are on here, whether it be for Public Works or Public Safety or Borough Property, still has to be approved by council for spending in the new year. So when you're approving a plan, what you're doing is just approving that, a plan, an idea of what you think you want to do. You're not setting anything in stone. So for example, if I were to include on here $5 million for a separate manager's office, you could keep that on there indefinitely. Wouldn't make any difference. You don't have to approve that until the time comes for it to actually be before you in a meeting. Just by putting it into a capital improvements plan does not mean that it has to be approved. Does not mean that it has to be, that does not mean that it's something you've locked in, that it's guaranteed. Now, the only exceptions for that with Public Works, you can see that there are a number of trucks, number 70, 71, 72. Some of them we already started paying on, and some of them you may start paying on in 2023 or some future year. So those things are locked in because either you've already guaranteed that or you're planning on doing it. But anything else in here is not necessarily locked in. Well, okay, I wanted to finish. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's exactly related to that. In the past, you actually color-coded fields which are already committed, because those lease payments, we can't change that anyway. So you had them, like, I think, grayed out or different color. anything which is already committed, because it's not an option anymore. I wonder if you can do that again.
Well, I can, but because we started this year from zero, this year, if you remember, when I started this back in May, I said we were going to start everything and have to renew everything all over again, except for trucks. There really isn't anything that you're absolutely 100% committed to until you finally approve it. The only example is, again, like, for example, this dump truck number 72 right here that I just highlighted. Whoops, maybe I highlighted. There it is right there. That dump truck is we've already spent some money on it. So you've already essentially agreed that that's something we're going to pay for, we're going to approve. So that's the reason. That's that. None of the other stuff that's in here is stuff that's guaranteed until you decide it is.
So Steve, I have a question. Of the, for example, under general maintenance and repair for 2022, you've budgeted $15,000. How much of that has actually been spent for maintenance and
Anything
repair?
that I have spent is in this column here.
So we
So
haven't
there's
spent anything on general maintenance and repair?
No, I mean, nothing major as far as maintenance. We've done some minor things, but nothing like this would be, for example, we need to replace the windows in the garage. We haven't done that yet, for example.
So you're just carrying that over to the 2023 because we haven't spent it in 2022. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay.
Right. But again, like I said, none of this is guaranteed. So except for the vehicles you've already approved, none of this is something that's fixed. It's all variable. You can move things around. If you don't want to do anything on general maintenance for the garage, you can take this $15,000 out of here, or you can move it to 2024, leave it blank for 2023. I mean, you have flexibility on this, including flexibility next year, because again, with this budget, just because you're going to approve a capital plan in December doesn't mean that you're locked into it. It's not like the general fund where you can't change the bottom line on it. Once you approve it, you approve it. With this, you can change this as much as you want because each item still has to be approved by council. Just putting it into the capital plan doesn't make it something that's set in stone. Okay. So the idea behind that, again, this is my longer explanation. I won't do this as much. The idea here is, again, to take a look at these projects. If you still have the summaries that I gave you last month, you have the detail in those summaries. I'm not sorry, not summaries. If you still have the project sheets I gave you in August, you have the detail on everything. The only exception was with the trucks, I did not give you project sheets. What I gave you was this, another spreadsheet that shows you each truck, shows you what we're planning on doing. For example, number 72, lease through 2025. Okay. Number 74 down here, 5-year lease purchase to 2029, starting in 2025. So it has the notes on there for each of the trucks on that separate sheet, which I also gave you last month. Okay. Anybody else have a question before I go on there? I'm not seeing everybody, just so you know, so go ahead and just talk.
I had a question about the 27,000 listed under street sweeper.
Yeah.
I thought we had a street sweeper.
We do, but it's old, and let me go back to this. On the list here, we have street sweeper lease purchase 6 years, beginning in 2023 to 2028. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I had the original purchase date on there. Jimmy, are you still on? Jimmy?
You're muted, Jimmy. You're still muted.
Jimmy, unmute. Unfortunately, I can't see him when I'm sharing my screen.
He's
Hit
on,
the
but he's
space
just
bar.
muted.
Jimmy, are you there?
Hit the
He's on-
space bar.
I am.
Okay,
Okay,
Am
Jimmy.
I good?
Well, yeah,
You're
when
good.
was the street sweeper purchase that we have now?
1997.
98,
I thought, Frank.
97.
Okay.
97.
So that's why we're saying in 2023, we think we need to begin considering purchase of a street sweeper. The other reason is because with the MS4 requirements, that's the stormwater requirements. One of the things we're required to do is make sure that we keep things out of the sewer that goes to the streams, and street sweeping is supposed to be an essential part of that. Again, we're not committing anything here, but we included it in there because of its age and because of the fact that we may have to do something because of MS4. Now, there's other options with street sweeper. You can always end up, for example, leasing one, or you can, if the COG has one, rent one from the COG. I don't know if they still do. They did it one time. I think they may have gotten rid of it, but I'm not sure. So there are other options you can do with it, but that's why it's there, Ms. Martin.
Well, I just had residents ask me, why don't we do the street sweeping? So I would be very interested in considering one option going forward. Thank you, Mr. Morris.
You're welcome. One of the things we also included on here, just below street sweeper, was street sweeping program, because we don't have a formal program right now like some communities do, where they go and do each street between, let's say, April and end of October. They do each street once a week or once every other week. And they have days when you can't park on those streets. They have signs up. That's one of the things that may be required of the stormwater requirements. I don't know that it is yet, but it may come to that too. And that's the reason why we have that line right below there, street sweeping program.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Morris,
Yes, go ahead.
just for the sake of those of us that are on a tiny screen like I am, could you make your screen full width?
Yeah, is there a way of doing that? Let me see here.
Upper right-hand corner, a little square. Yeah.
That,
No, not that one.
no,
Next.
not that one.
Yeah, that'll do it.
I'm sorry, where?
It
I'm
should,
not- That should do it.
should have. Yeah, doesn't look like it's doing it.
Here, let me, how about if I do that? Does that help?
That
That's
does.
better.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so if you've had the chance to look at the projects that were given to you last month, that's what the input is needed on right now. To start with, you could also finish this in October, but just to begin with, if there's any projects you object to or any projects you think that should be changed or adjusted, that's what the point of this is in September, looking at the list and looking at the projects to see if there's anything in here that you don't understand, want to change, want to eliminate, etc.
got a question.
Go ahead.
Just briefly, can you outline the process on how we make acquisitions, whether we just use the state website or whether it goes, how is that bidding process done?
Well, one good thing about a lot of stuff in Public Works is it is under CoStars, Mr. Watkins, which is the state piggyback program. So, for example, a lot of the trucks we get, we can do that way. We can, because the state already has gone out on a contract, so we don't have to formally bid it. If it's something that is not on the state contract and it's something that's a sizable dollar figure that we estimate will happen for it, then we have to bid. And what that means is we have to advertise it twice in a local paper of general circulation. We have to prepare specifications as to what we're looking for and advertise those specifications, kind of what we did with the clock bid that I showed you under borough property the last couple of months, kind of the same thing, where you would say, for example, we want to make sure that this truck also has rust proofing, that this truck has a new radio. that you would specify those things in the bid spec, and then you would advertise it. And you could also at that time send it out to companies that you know that sell trucks. But again, if we're lucky, many of the larger items are on state contract. And so we can use that program called CoStars to piggyback.
All right. Thank you very
So
much,
you
Mr.
have-
Morse.
In 2023, you have listed dump truck 73, which has to have the lease renewed, I presume. That's a $91,850. That doesn't mean we allocate that all in that 1 year, right? That means
Right.
we renew the lease in that year.
If we're going to lease it, yes, that's how we do it.
Right. Then you have-
With that dump truck though, Jimmy, are you still on there?
Yeah.
Yes.
Number 73, can you explain what
Yeah,
happened? Go ahead.
that's the truck that you folks decided that you were going to take out of the bond issue money.
Okay.
But the order on the truck order got canceled from Ford. So they're supposed to resubmit it this October. So, it has to be reordered again.
So what we did when we planned that last year, and I just kept the same designation in on this, we planned that was going to be possibly a lease purchase for 2 or 3 years using the bond issue money. But because that has been delayed, I just put the whole figure in for 2023, $91,850. You can still lease it if you want using the bond issue money, but I thought it was more representative to show the full amount that we estimated the cost to be.
And that's the same with the 75 dump truck, which is 71.5.
Yes, I
The
think.
10-ton with plow.
Jimmy, again, on 75, can you explain what we're doing there? I forget now. What,
Yeah, 71.5 was going to come out of the bond issue money, Steve. And then the rest of the payments were going to come out of the, your
oh, that's right.
your budget.
Yeah, we were going to put a down payment on it first and then what from bond issue.
And
Yeah,
is
that
that
was
one-
one of
And is that
discussions
one
within.
scheduled and ordered?
Yeah, it's ordered, but we're probably not going to see it. We ordered it in, I think it was the end of I think it was like in February we ordered it, but we're not going to see it till probably for about a year.
Okay, so both of those are going to get shifted out a year.
Yeah, but in finance committee, you may remember we had a list of how we were planning on using the bond issue proceeds. And I had the detail for those trucks in there. I didn't reprint it on this.
Right, I
This sheet.
understand. It's just that the dates are now getting shifted out because of order delays.
Right.
Okay.
Well, it's going to change constantly. Again, that's the one, if there is a good thing about a capital plan, the fact that it's flexible and you're not committing yourself to anything by just approving the plan itself. You're just approving something that is a projection, a plan that gives you some flexibility to at least adjust things as you go. If we have to adjust that further, we can still do that. The other things that are in here have to do with some garage work, and we ended up putting in, you'll notice a leaf machine collector again. In this one, that's we already have one truck like that. We put it in at its full cost in 2027 because we figured that we might need a new truck by that time or a second truck. But the state typically gives you a grant for trucks like that, where they, as of now, and that could change, they pay 90% of the cost and you pay 10. So, but we wanted to put that in there showing the full amount. Yes, Bill Burley.
When you're tracking the usage of the trucks, are you doing mileage? Are you doing hours? How do we track that?
Jimmy, are you doing any tracking at all? I believe we're not doing as much as had been discussed before by Mr. Bioki and Ms. Martin, where they were looking at inventory related stuff. But go ahead, Jimmy. Are you tracking?
Yeah, we have mileage.
Mileage? Okay, how about on the tractors? Do you track hours or mileage on those?
Hours. on the
Okay.
machines.
Okay,
In any case, these are the projects that were submitted. If you need another month to look at them, you can. But basically what we're asking you to do is review them and say, yes, this is fine, and let it forward eventually to the Finance Committee for inclusion in the overall capital plan for 2023. Mr. Watkins, you're muted. I think you were saying something.
Mr. Morris, do you need a motion for that?
Oh, no, because when you approve the capital plan in December, that will be one big motion. The committee simply needs to, the three members of the committee simply need to say, yes, let's move on. No, let's talk about it one more time in October, and then we'll consider moving on. Or let's make these changes, whatever you decide.
Ms. Martin, Mr. Bayoki, what's your impression?
As it stands right now, based on the information, I would say that I would just go ahead with the plan as it stands. I haven't had a chance to go through this in great detail, but you know, the little bit that I did look at it looks okay to me.
I don't see any items that could be covered by Siemens in here, but I believe Vice President DeMarco will be highlighting those next time at our next meeting. So I think it's good to go right now, Mr. Watkins. Thank you.
All right.
May
Well,
I
with you-
ask, may I ask a clarification question, please?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure, Mr. Mayor.
So just a couple of things that I want. So let's go back to the dump trucks for a moment. Like, if we look at, like, I think it's 73 and then again 76. It looks like we front load the cost almost 2 years in 2023. And almost 3 years in 20 for.
Which-
So look at number 74, I think dump truck, right? Is that the line item or no, I'm sorry, number 73. It's like a 91K hit against the 2023 budget, right?
Right,
Next year's budget.
that's the one we just explained is coming out of the bond issue.
Right, it's coming out of the bond issue. So basically what we're saying here, though, we normally do a lease to purchase program, and we stretch that payment out over what, a 5-year time frame, and it's a buyout for $1, right? Traditionally, that's how it's been. Is that what we're still doing, or are we just absorbing that hit all in 1 year?
We are doing that with most things, but because we have to spend so much of the bond issue by a certain time, we
Okay,
looked at what projects we could do and just pay it rather than lease and then have to pay interest on it.
got it. Okay, I just wanted to. I wasn't quite tracking with you when you guys were explaining it the first time. So, and I
Okay.
assume is that the same thing then for number 75?
Yes,
Okay,
that was a partial payment from the bond issue.
Right.
As a down payment, and then with lease purchase for the rest.
all right. Thank you very much. Appreciate
You're
it.
welcome. And I wanted to add something else now, and I can't remember what I was going to say. So maybe I'll say it during another committee rather than hold us up. Let me stop sharing this. And since Mr. Watkins doesn't have the agenda, let me share my screen with the, this is what I have for the agenda, under manager's report. We just finished the capital plan, and you said it was okay to leave the plan as it stands.
Yes.
And then the Three Rivers wet weather update we typically get, I don't have an update from them yet. The other thing I had was this letter that we emailed everybody today was a letter from the county, the engineer group that they had hired that are doing work on Braddock Road and Wilkins. Braddock from Ardmore to Brinton and then down into Braddock Hills is owned by the county, and they're going to do paving work on there, and they're also applying for a DEP permit for it. And they sent us that information because you have 30 days in case you have any objection or a zoning issue or what have you. Whenever you apply for a DEP permit, the municipality has the right to question or ask for more information or a halt or whatever on that. I don't know that there's a reason for that. My note here says you may want to ask the engineer if there is a reason to do anything more with that. So if Mr. Gilliland is on,
Yes.
is there any reason for us to do anything about that, Dave?
No.
Or you-
No, I don't understand why Patty has her hand up.
I would like to know whether we have any opportunity to ask them to provide better pedestrian safety along that Braddock Road. I have seen people frequently walking down Braddock Road, and there isn't even a stripe to indicate a walking area. I know that they have the option to do that when they repave. I wonder if this would be an opportunity to raise that issue to them again about the pedestrian safety on that road, at least in the way of making the shoulder as wide as possible and giving a particular, at least on one side of the road, pedestrian safe zone.
Yeah, we can certainly ask them that. The letter that
I want to ask it in a way that they have to give us a response as to why they cannot comply with providing a safe walking space when the bus line runs on Brinton and Ardmore, and people do walk down Braddock Road. I have seen them. I've sent them pictures. It's highly hazardous.
Yes, it's also used by children that
Yes.
go to and from school,
Yes.
because that leads to the high school. Yeah, I will mention that to them and see if I can get a response from them. That's not what this is about. I'm not sure why they're applying for a DEP permit. They already have storm sewers that discharge to the stream. So I can't imagine why they list 3 permit numbers, but I don't know what those are referring to. 3 acts that DEP has that they're referring to, but like I said, I don't know why they're applying for that, but the form that they sent us just asked if we have a municipal comprehensive plan and a zoning plan, and if their work conforms with this. And what I can do then is say, I can change that and say that, no, it is not in conformance with our comprehensive plan because it does not provide for pedestrian safety.
And you can also send them the active transportation plan, which explicitly mentions that as a hazard,
Right.
because that was adopted as part of our comprehensive plan process.
Okay. That's a good suggestion.
Okay, is there anything else with that, Mr. Gilliland?
No.
Okay, then, Mr. Watkins, I'm done with my report, and if you want to move on, here's the next part of the agenda. Okay, you're muted, sir. Mr. Watkins, you're muted.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Morris. I have the committee report up. At this point, we move on to the foreman engineer's report.
Thank you. The first item concerns the MS4 detention pond project behind the park and ride lot in Avenue B. We met with the contractor on August 3rd and showed him that the work completed to date was not in conformance with the specifications. Since then, he has done no additional work but submitted an invoice. We are not approving the invoice until the work is done correctly. And Laura has sent him a certified letter reminding him of the specifications, and the deadline for completion of the project was back on July 23rd of this year. We copied the mayor manager and solicitor on that letter. Laura, do you want to elaborate on this?
Yeah, he did. He sent us an invoice for between 75 and 80% of the total, and he has not completed anywhere near that much work. So we sent him a letter, like Dave said, stating that he needed to finish the work, and that at this point, we could charge him for liquidated damages if he doesn't get the project done. I asked him to have it completed by September 30th. I'm assuming he got the letter today or tomorrow. We sent it on Friday, so over the holiday, hopefully he hasn't. No, he's still been calling as of this morning to try and get paid. we're not improving the invoice until he actually finishes the project.
We did send that letter by certified mail so that we can verify that he did receive it in case he would, because he did threaten in an email to pursue things through his attorney for non-payment. So we want to keep a record that he was notified that the work he has done is not correct and that was done through certified mail. He can't say that he wasn't made aware of that.
Let me add something to that, please. If that's okay.
Sure.
I
Go
just
ahead.
want to make sure he keeps calling me, and I talked to him initially and got it started enough so that he was talking to the engineer, but he keeps calling me again, and I'm refusing to talk with him now. This is Mr. Dragon, Luke Dragon. I'm refusing to talk to him now because he has used the threat of a solicitor with this, and I've told him he should put everything in writing, which he did do, but I'm not talking to him any further than that. The other problem with this is his solicitor is also our solicitor. So our solicitor cannot get himself involved in this. I did talk with Steve Corbell briefly today, but just so you're aware of that. So unless somebody has an objection to that, I'm going to continue to ignore his calls. I've told him already he has to talk to the experts, the engineer. And if we had to bring in an attorney or something, we'd have to figure that out down the road. But I just want to make sure you're aware. That's probably all I should say now in public.
I have a question. What's the probability that he will be able to get this work done by the end of the month?
If he comes out and does what he needs to do, he's not that far, I don't think, from completion. Correct, Laura?
He's waiting on his report from the geotech that he was supposed to get at the beginning of the project. That's why he's trying to get paid, because he has done work, but he missed the first step. So he has to go back and start again, basically. They should have that to him hopefully in the next, no, I'm not sure. I'll have to talk to him, but if he does get the report back, he should be able to finish the work by the end of the month, no problem.
Okay, thank you.
We'll keep you up to date on this thing as it progresses. Any other
Please.
questions on that item?
I just would like to comment. I understand there is a conflict because our solicitor is their solicitor, but I think someone needs to be in contact with them so they don't think that we're not good for our end of things. So Mr. Gilliland, would that be your group then?
Yeah, we did send them a letter that said exactly why they weren't getting paid and why they won't get paid until they do the work correctly.
Okay.
Not only that, I've spoken with him on the phone. We spoke on the phone 2 or 3 times last week. I've been in constant contact with him. It's not that we're ignoring him. It's just that I keep telling him over and over again, he's not getting paid until he does the work. So he's just not getting the answer he wants from me.
Okay, thank you.
Which is probably why he's trying Mr. Morris.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on, the Fall Run Interceptor project is slowly progressing. PennDOT is doing some work in that same area, and it has slowed down our work, but it is very close to being completed. It should be completed by the middle of this month. The work on the Ashley Court to Ardmore sanitary sewer cleaning and root cutting is also being held up by PennDOT's culvert work, which is in the same area. Once they're out of that way, which I understand should be happening very soon, we will be able to complete that work. The 2022 paving project is scheduled to begin this week. So they should be starting work very, very soon on our streets. The Watt Lane Headwall project is still in design phase, and we have applied for a DEP permit, which will probably take some time because we're working on a stream. And once that's the permit's received, then we will have the design done by then, and we'll advertise that for bid. As we mentioned last month, there is a developing slide along Fillmore Road. It's been happening for several years where the sidewalk is undermined. And we, as council authorized the drilling of test holes to determine where the groundwater is in that area. Those test holes were drilled on August 31st. Once we get the core borings back from that, we can analyze them and design a drainage system to collect the groundwater, which is causing the slide. We have received notice from Jim Thielacker that there is a storm inlet on Pacific Avenue near Sharon, where the back wall of the basin has collapsed. We went ahead and got proposals to replace it. Those were opened August 31st at the borough office. We sent it out to 4 contractors. The lowest response was from Satira Construction at $8,840. So we are recommending that the committee and council authorize us to award that project. If committee is okay with it, we will have the contractor proceed with the project, because it is kind of an emergency to get done right away. Jim had mentioned to me, as a matter of fact, just today, that the yard of the adjacent to the basin is collapsing, and therefore it's a priority to get this done. Correct, Jim? You're muted.
Yeah, that's right, Dave.
Okay. So is the committee okay with us getting the contractor to proceed? Satira Construction at $8,840 for this catch basin replacement, and it would be ratified at the next business meeting of council.
I'm okay with that if Ms. Martin and Mr.
I'm okay.
Zaruki.
I have no problem. I do have a question for Mr. Gilliland.
Sure.
On the paving, well, once the paving is completed, there will be some line painting that gets done, I believe, like around the pickleball court.
Yes, yes.
Is there, if we wanted to expand the pickleball court, I believe there's a basketball court there now.
Yes.
Is that still possible to do?
We have that on borough property to discuss.
Okay. Thank
Yeah,
you.
it may be an additional cost. I mean, I think it was supposed to be lined for pickleball and basketball. I don't know if there's going to be a price difference if we make 2 pickleballs instead of 1. I kind of doubt it.
Well, we have that on borough property, so we're going to talk about
yeah,
it
we can
twice,
discuss
so
it
just,
then.
you know.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
And that is all I have to report.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gilliland.
You're welcome.
Foreman's report.
Okay, the only thing I have is the list of projects for September. If anybody has any questions, please ask. The only one other item I have, I just mentioned to Steve, on our big high lift loader, rubber tired loader, we're going to need 4 new tires for it, but that'll be next year. But we're talking a large amount of money. It's like around $9,600. That includes the tires and dismounting and mounting. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
While I've got you online, Mr. Thielacker, are there any other catch basins that might need repair?
There could be a few more. We've been doing a lot of them here, Cecil, and but there could be a few more out there. The reason we couldn't do this one up on Pacific was because it's deep, the outlet pipe and stuff, and it was just too involved for us to tackle it.
All right. There are, in terms of the committee report, there are alternatives to road evaluation. Is that, Mr. Baiocchi, is that an issue that you wanted to raise?
That is, it's gotten a little more complex because there's some information from the PennDOT consultants that I think we probably need to discuss offline. So I think before we can get in any deeper into that, I think we need to have a discussion about what we can do, work with, and what we can do with the consultants.
Is that something that you want to move to executive session?
No, just I think I'd like to send you some additional information, and then you can evaluate whether you want to bring it up next meeting.
That probably
Alright.
wouldn't be an exec session item anyway. You probably could not talk about that under exec session unless you were talking about a contract you're entering or something like that.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Baoki. Thank you, Mr. Morris.
Mr. Watkins, I did inquire of Alcoasand about having someone come to talk to us about the sewer project and the infrastructure improvement. I was not able to secure their engagement for this evening before I went out of town. So I'll have to move that to another date. I apologize.
That's things, that's fine. Things
Yeah.
come up.
Yeah,
We'll
sent
try
an
to get it.
inquiry. He sent an inquiry after I had left town and I didn't monitor this email while I was away. So I didn't get back to him in time to answer his question. But I think we do need to hear from them a little bit about how our project fits into the rest of it and what the effect is going to be on our sewer rates.
Have they been able to give us any estimates at all on what type of impact there may be?
It's looking like 7% per year for the next 5 years, which is pretty hefty in terms of sewer charges, which is why I wanted to have them come and explain. I may try to get him to come to finance because it would be relevant there as well. That will affect borough sewer charges as well as customers.
Exactly.
I do want to have a discussion with them. And as Mr. Gilliland reported, we're nearly finished with our part of the trunk line upgrade, but not quite. And once that's finished and we turn it over to them, then, you know, that whole process will be out of our hands now.
Thank you, Ms. Marco.
Yep.
If there are any other questions, we can, let me see, I see some things on, we talked about the catch basin repairs. Steve, is that something that we need to move to the following committee?
Oh, that was just my notes I'm taking.
Just your notes you're taking?
Yeah, that's all.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's all we have for Public Works.
Okay. I'm okay then to move to borough property if everybody else is. Any problems with that?
That's fine.
Okay.
I'm fine.
Okay, capital improvements plan project submitted. Again, I'm not going to go into all the detail I just went into with Public Works, but I will share my screen and maybe I will, maybe I won't. Wait a minute. And show you that I have given you a list again of projects that I had provided to you in August. The project packets. Okay, sorry about this. The project packets look like this. I didn't have that up for Public Works, but you have project packets like this that describe what people are asking for. And I provided you with a summary here in attached to your agenda that looks like this, a spreadsheet again, where all the projects that were submitted are placed under a spreadsheet. Once again, you need to review them and decide what you like and don't like, what you want to change and don't change. Again, recalling that none of this is set in stone until council actually approves the project. Now, I will add one more thing, Ms. Martin, to that, and that is that some of the work that is at the Westinghouse Lodge, for example, was already under consideration because of ARPA funds and or bond issue funds. So while I have them listed here because they should be. So that's right. Somebody mentioned that last committee, the Public Works Committee, that if we were getting money from a certain area, you should still list things in the capital budget if you can, even if you're taking the money, for example, from ARPA or the bond issue or what have you. It has to go through the accounting system some way anyway. So you might as well put them in here in the capital plan. And that's what's happened with a lot of the recreation center, lodge stuff, just like it was with the public works trucks. Those things are either bond issue or ARPA, and that's why they're shown here. And I have building maintenance items and also recreation items that were submitted to the Borough Property Committee. So again, I'm not going to go into a long explanation again unless you have any questions, but you should feel free to discuss this if you want now, or however you want me to handle this.
Well, I have some requests that I would like, but I see it's later on under the committee business report, but I'll just remember what you just said and expand on that then, if that's okay with the other two members.
Sure.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Can I quickly ask a question? Can you give us details on that ball field maintenance, $50,000?
Yeah, I added that myself. The reason I did that is because, and I don't know, 50,000 is just a ball, excuse me for saying this, but it's a ballpark figure. Every year in the past, we've had problem with the fields because they either become weed overgrown or they become very choppy. And I look at them because I'm here now with in the building right across from there, and I don't understand how they're playable. In some cases, even after a short rain or something, they get to be almost hard when they dry out, or they become weed overgrown to the point where if somebody is playing baseball on there, a ball is hit to them, they're going to end up having all kinds of problems trying to field it and possibly get themselves hit in the face or something. So I just think we need to do something with those fields. Now, whether that $50,000 for 2023 is too much or not, I don't know. But I think we need to do something with especially the infields at the Westinghouse rec fields because of that problem. And I don't have pictures. I wish I would have taken some back at the beginning. I just thought of this at the last minute in August when we were doing this. If you were to go up to the Westinghouse rec fields tomorrow, after they dry out, and look at how hard that ground is, and look at how some of the weeds are there, you would see that I think you'd agree with me that it could be a danger. And so that's the reason why I put it in there. The rest of the items that are in here, again, are things for you to consider, and either this month or next month, recommend to the Finance Committee for consideration in the overall plan. With, again, the understanding is that nothing is permanent. Everything still has to be approved as you go by council.
Well, I believe that the solar panels and some of the other items listed are items that would also be cross-listed with the Siemens report. Can you let us know, Vice President DeMarco?
That is correct.
Can I say one thing about that? Those Siemens should still, anything you're doing with Siemens should also still be in here.
Yeah, I think what I'd like to suggest is that if we have items that are going to be cross-referenced with Siemens, we either put a footnote on the bottom, like an asterisk or something, or color code them so that we can say these things are listed. There are also some things for which we would only go forward if we get a grant come through. You have down here under infrastructure walkway improvements. First of all, that number is way low, but we have been notified that we will be getting grant funding in November of this year for the walkways and trails like the Crazy Steps improvements. And so I would like to list those, but we should be having a way to footnote that would be grant funding. And then we would only need to put in the amount on our side of the budget is the amount that would be matched. And I don't think we have a match requirement for the ones here. The solar panels we may, depending on if it's federal money.
Well,
So
I
I
don't,
would suggest that you just put a footnote and say, list everything by absolutely list everything. So we have it all in one place, but we should be able to indicate where the funding is coming from for some of these things that have designated funding sources.
if you look in my budget book, which
Yeah.
I'm going to hold up, even though you probably can't see it, after I show you spreadsheets for capital,
Yeah,
I show you text that explains what, any detail that's relevant to that. So for example, with walkway improvements, if we had a grant under that text portion is
Yeah.
where I would write that in rather than footnotes. That's how I do it.
okay, fine, whatever. Addenda or footnotes, I'm a scientist, I use footnotes, so I know that you explain all these items in detail. The main thing is, I agree with you that there should be one place where everything is listed, even if some of it is funded from other places.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, the only thing I would add then at the end is the committee just simply needs to decide if you feel like you've had enough time to review those packets from August, whether or not you want to continue discussing this in October before you recommend anything to Finance Committee, or like Public Works did, go ahead and say as a committee, let's move it to Finance as is, or with any changes that you might recommend. That's what I would need.
Well, can I just make my suggestions now then?
Yeah.
Okay,
Sure.
so for instance, right now, what's listed under the renovations, 18,409,403, the 55,000. I believe that was the water remediation. And that was something I had hoped we could use ARPA funds for. And actually, I wonder if we can move forward now with asking Mr. Gilliland to get quotes for this, since the basement, we want to make sure it's nice and dry during the winter when there could be water from either snow or rain getting in there. And this would be something I think we should start soon.
I would agree with that, especially since it's already in the 2022 budget that hasn't been spent.
I
Well,
agree
what
with
I'd
that.
like to do, though, if we decide, is we can keep the dollar amounts in there, but just talk later on about other things that we could do instead of that. Is that okay, Mr. Morris?
Sure. Yes.
Okay. Okay, then moving forward, additionally, there was the new door at the end of the ramp for the Westinghouse Lodge. I believe that was 6,500. Right here, 18,460,242.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I would also like that to be moved to, we could get working on now. And again, from the ARPA funds. The next two items would be, first, the mold remediation, which isn't listed here, but I think is necessary before other projects can move forward down there. And then next it would be the asbestos. Again, those two items coming from ARPA. And what I'd like to do is talk about there, and again, there are some things on here that I know we'll leave on, even though they're being looked at by Siemens. But what I'd like to add, which I don't see included here, there was also for painting the basement, which would happen after those four items I just mentioned. Go ahead, Mr. Morris.
Well, I would not list them in a spreadsheet separately like that. What I would do if you, because every time you list a separate project, you have to have a different line item number. What I tend to do then, and this is what most people do, most municipalities do with their budget, I'm showing renovations in general. And that would include things like mold, that would include things like water remediation, that would include things like painting. I mean, the numbers may not be enough. I don't know that. I don't know. These are estimates, but those kind of things would all be part of it. So you wouldn't necessarily show the door at the end of the ramp is a special different thing. It's a physical item, whereas these other things are work that you're doing, like remediation of water, for example. So that would be all under 18409-403. Wouldn't be listed separate.
I was looking at that. I was only matching up the figure there, which was actually from Dave's, Mr. Gilliland's quote at 55,000. But additionally, the mold and asbestos remediation were an additional 10,000 apiece. So that number would have to get added up to 75 if that in fact would even cover it. I don't know if you need to change any of that, but that's what I'd like to move forward. And
So
then
you're suggesting we make that 55,000 for 2023, 75,000 in order to be sure we cover the identified items for mold remediation and asbestos removal, among other things.
yes, I would.
Okay,
Sure.
all right.
Mr. Burley, any comments?
Yes, I agree. We should,
Okay.
yeah, make sure we cover everything.
Again, and if I have any numbers in here that are incorrect overall in any of these, again, this is a plan, it's an estimate. When council finally comes to a point of having to approve something, you know, you approve whatever you want to do. You approve whatever the number is. You don't have to worry about whether I shorted it here or not. So, but I will
Well, and
change
I'd
that.
like to ask for something specifically for consideration. I noticed the porch rails there. Okay, Mr. Gilliland, maybe you can help me with the wording, but I noticed the railings going up to the steps were very deteriorated on the
Correct.
Weston House Lodge. And then actually the entire fence going around, wasn't that needed replaced as well?
Yes, yes, the railings on the steps, the bottom of the railings are rusted away. The railings on the handicap ramp are not up to current ADA codes. And the problem is that if you replace the handrails on the steps and the ramp, they don't meet and match
Right.
the handrails around the whole building. So yeah, if you're going to do the handrails, you'd have to do the whole perimeter of the building, including the steps and the ramp.
And that's where I would add a separate line item then. For example, that's not in here separately. So that's where I would put a separate line item.
I think we really need to move forward on that for safety and for
Yeah.
ADA compliance.
I agree that is a health and safety issue, and I don't want to
Oh.
skip on those.
Yes, it is. I agree too.
Okay.
Can I make a comment on that? I mean, the whole Westinghouse, we're going to hire an architect. I mean, the whole plan is probably subject to change, including those handrails. You know, we can't fix something and we want to replace it maybe anyway. So we have to be careful what our architects are going to say. You know, like stuff like basement, that has nothing to do with the architect. That's easy to fix now. But painting, bathrooms, handrails, all that stuff, flooring will be part of the architectural plan. So we should have soon.
Well, I think given the fact that it's in such bad shape, I agree with you about the architect, which he's necessary or she. But on the other hand, I really would like to add that line item in if that's
Yeah,
possible.
I mean, the whole plan, you know, Steve said it's a plan. So if we change something in between all those Westinghouse rack, it doesn't matter. We have money for that. So, you know, I don't want to fix something we're going to change. You know, rental season is over. It's not used a lot now. So we don't have to rush it. The handrail. The
Well,
mold,
as
the
long as we
basement,
have money for it next year, then.
we do. We have enough money for the Westinghouse rack. You know, we have
Okay, then.
the whole Westinghouse, all those line items are subject to change. I mean, it's a plan, like Steve said, we can change it. So if the architect gives us like a proposal and says, you know, like the, I don't know, the restroom renovation cost 40,000, it will be 40,000, not 35. You know, the whole plan is a plan. And we have to listen to our architect, what they want to do. And Siemens too. It's part of it too. So
Yes, Mr. Morris.
I think that's a good point. Basically, you can always add and subtract things to this. It's a good idea to have as much stuff in there that recognize what you're doing essentially is recognizing that we have to be responsible. We have equipment and buildings and things like that that need, extensive work, and it's going to be costly. And that's what the idea of the plan is doing. So it doesn't necessarily have to always be in the plan to still be something that you could add to it or, adjust or what have you. But in this case, I can add it if you want. That's not a problem. But I agree with what he's saying there from that point of view.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, thank you.
Okay, so do you want this to continue then one more month before any final?
Do we know when the
discuss-
architect's plan will be in our hands?
we don't have an architect yet. We have to pick
Ah.
one. Which is part of it.
Well, in that case, I think we should send it forward as pending, and it'll be subject to amendment when and if we get the architect to make adjustments.
I
Yeah, I agree,
Patty.
Patty. I agree, Patty.
Okay, so have it go forward to Finance Committee.
Thank you.
Okay, I only have two other items then. One is, they're both updates. One is the Centennial Clock, just so you know, I have advertised that for bid. We have interest from two companies right now. We've also had two that have said no, they weren't interested. But the bids aren't due until early October, and they will be presented to either this committee or in committee of the whole, depending on how we're meeting then. But in any case, I'll have them for you then. And Iron Mountain Storage, we're still working on that. Again, if anybody is able to help with moving some boxes around and shifting some paperwork and stuff, please let us know. We're going to, we already are taking stuff into the office. We're going to store some things in community room. We're going to try to keep that to a minimum, but we will be storing some things there so that we can save money by not having Iron Mountain come out multiple times. We'll try to reduce the number of trips they have to make so we can save money. But there is an extensive damage to some of the boxes that were over in the rec lodge basement, and it's taking us a long time to go through all the stuff and get it organized. So if anybody's able to help, let me know. Other than that, just a reminder, there's a rec board vacancy that needs filled. I still don't have any applicants for that. Other than that, I don't have anything else to report.
Okay, then, the engineer's report, please.
Thank you. First item is the pickleball court. The line painting will be done when the paving project starts. Do we want to, is there an interest in discussing whether we're going to paint one basketball and one pickleball?
Jim wanted to raise the issue, Mr. Gillen. Jim. You're muted.
You're still
Jim.
muted, Jim. Still can't hear you.
Space bar.
Jim,
Jim?
touch the screen on the far left side, and that will unmute. If you see the mute on the far left side of the screen, touch that, and the far left black side, it'll come up as soon as you touch the black. Okay. No, you're not. I can't unmute you from here, unfortunately. Try pressing and holding the space bar down. Okay, let me tell you, he was going to say that as we've looked at the court, we've realized now we can actually still keep the basketball court there and fit 2 pickleball courts in. So when we're talking about painting, what he wanted to know was, would you like to make that change? I think it would involve purchase of another net. Is that correct, Jim? Just shake your head yes or no. Yes, it would involve purchase of another net, but other than that, we could fit in 2 pickleball courts rather than just the one. And
Without
because
losing a basketball court.
still basketball court would still be there.
That's good.
Any other comments on that?
I have a question. Is there room for a third pickleball court there?
Only if you remove the basketball court.
So here's, I'm kind of, let me, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm ambivalent about it, but I would say that we have the main park for basketball,
Uh-huh.
and pickleball is becoming more and more of a popular sport for a lot of seniors, but also even middle-aged folks. And we might want to just consider making 3 pickleball courts there for the time being. We have 2 full-size courts at the main park. And then let's see how that goes in terms of usage and popularity. We can always change one of the pickleball courts back to a basketball court if we feel the demand is required. That's just my opinion on it based on the conversations I've been having around town. I mean, people are like super excited about the pickleball courts. They can't wait for them to get in here. It seems like it's going to be a super popular and well-used
I
amenity.
agree with you, Mr. Mayor. A lot of residents have spoken to me about that.
Mhm.
And as you noted, there is basketball at the main court. Could we try making the entire court pickleball then? If not only just as a trial period perhaps, and then change back if necessary?
Dave, if they were going to do that, what would have to happen with the basketball supports that are there now? Would they get in the way?
I would recommend you take them down. If you're not going to allow basketball there, I would suggest you take down the basketball, at least take down the basketball, the actual hoop. You could leave the backboard since that's going to tear up the new asphalt, but I would at least take down the hoop just to discourage anyone from trying to play basketball. And then maybe somebody shows up and wants to play pickleball and there's a conflict. Or if they try to play basketball and the nets from the pickleball get in the way and somebody gets hurt. So that would be the way you could do it. You just take down the hoops.
What about the metal posts that hold up the hoops?
Well, I would, if you're definitely not going to put them back, then I would take those down. But if there's a possibility that you might go back to basketball there, I would leave them up.
So somebody playing pickleball isn't going to hurt themselves by running into the metal. I don't know enough about it to know.
It depends on which way the pickleballs are laid out. If the basketball posts line up with the posts for the pickleball, then it's less likely that they would run into them. But if they are behind them, so where you would back up from the court, you might run into them. Yes, I don't know how the pickleballs are going to be laid out if we go with 3 pickleballs.
Jim, do you know how it's going to be laid out? Oh, wait. There he is.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we
Yes.
can.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, when I measured, like I said, there was definitely room for 2 pickleball courts and 1 basketball court. And then if you don't play basketball, you definitely have enough room for 3 pickleball courts. If you're gonna put them in, I guess we probably want to put them like between, you'd actually would be facing between Sharon and Fillmore for the 3 courts.
Would the basketball pools be in the way of those courts if we left them up?
I don't think so, because they're all the way back against the fence. So I think they're going to be fine. The lines are going to be in some. you know.
Okay. Okay.
Any other comments on that?
Well, I'd like to try both for a while because there are a lot of basketball people that want to play, and plus the season is still going on in some people's minds. So, I mean, it's an optional situation to see if we can have both sports areas going on. But I know if the basketball court is gone, they're not even going to come down there to see if it's going to come back. So we're going to lose that for a long time.
I
Would
also-
you want to have the 2 pickleball courts and then the 1 basketball court? Is that what you're saying, Mr. Burley?
I'm thinking that might be a test option to see if that would work for us.
Vice President DeMarco, any comment?
I am concerned about losing basketball courts because that's mostly a youth activity. And I don't want
Yes.
to reduce, a youth opportunity in an area where they would have to go some distance to go to the main park if they're, I'd like to just keep 2 pickleball courts and 1
Yes.
basketball court and see how it goes.
I agree.
You get inundated with demand for more pickleball courts and there's nobody playing basketball, well, then maybe we can always do it later.
Mr. Bioki, your hands up?
Yeah, just ask a question. If someone's playing pickleball, or 2 courts are going with pickleball and somebody's playing basketball, is there going to be any confrontations or interference between the 2 sports?
I guess there could be.
I mean, that could result in some heated arguments, perhaps. That might not be very conducive to people enjoying themselves if maybe a basketball is going into the pickleball court while people are trying to play and vice versa.
Well, there could be, if we had all pickleball courts, the same thing could happen.
Yeah, but it's more like you're all playing tennis. It's one thing, but just a question.
Cecil, do you have your hand up for this?
Yes, I do.
Sorry.
I think that what we need to do is to look at usage. If the basketball courts are still being used, it would be viewed as punishment to take away the basketball court and put in all pickleball courts. I don't know if we've done anything like that. And I don't know where we can get future trends to see if pickleball is the future for a community like ours. So I would be of the opinion that we keep the basketball courts and just do the 2 pickleball courts. If somebody is going to do some type of survey and see that the basketball courts are not used at all, rarely, then fine, we can take them out. But we could have the same issues with pickleball, that we put in 3 pickleball courts and only one of them gets used 1/10 of the time that we are estimating.
I agree. I think we should look at having both sports areas being offered and see how they get used.
But you already have dedicated basketball, right? You have a dedicated park that only does basketball. There are no other sports offered at that park. So, I mean, you could look at it either way, I guess, is all I'm saying. But the reality of the matter is that, the way people are talking, that's going to be a high use area for pickleball, and you're only going to have 3 pickleball courts going, right? I mean, most other places like Monroeville, et cetera, they have way more usage. So if you leave the, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. If you leave the poles up, you can always convert back over to basketball if the demand is there. But it's not like so then it's not as if you're removing the opportunity to play basketball in Forest Hills, right? You're just having a dedicated pickleball area, and then the other park will be dedicated basketball.
Well, I don't know if the other park is dedicated basketball basketball only, because I see kids playing soccer there. I think we've got
You see
a
people
baseball
playing soccer in the basketball courts area?
No, further on down in
Right,
the park.
that's what I'm saying. Like, there's a dedicated basketball court area that's just hoops. There's no others. There's like, in other words, there's no pickleball or tennis or anything else going on there. That's just dedicated to hoops. This would be dedicated to pickleball. That's all I'm saying. Yeah, I mean, obviously the fields are dedicated to soccer, right?
Yes. Soccer and baseball/softball.
Are there any other comments?
Yes, as a compromise, I would paint in the center a basketball court, but 3 pickleball courts, set up 3 pickleball courts, and those hoops we can temporarily remove and then see how it goes. We can always put them back and remove the middle pickleball net. I think we should start out with 3 pickleball courts and see how it goes.
I
But
agree. I
we
agree.
can always go
Marcus.
back to basketball if we need to.
I agree, Marcus. That sounds good to me.
Well, now we're all varying opinions. I say we keep it 2 pickleball courts and stay with 1 basketball court.
I agree.
Sounds good to me.
All right. Can we move on from that then, please?
Yes.
Were we, Mr. Gilliland, you're muted, I believe. Don't you just hate Zoom sometimes?
Could get out of San Francisco, Dave.
We can't hear you from there, Dave. Try getting back to Pittsburgh.
Don't take the Golden Gate Bridge, Dave.
Your
Okay,
smile-
there we go.
There we
I
go.
hear you. I hear
Okay,
you.
sorry. I accidentally changed my background. I'm not in San Francisco. So the next item is the blight remediation grant. There's nothing new on that. We're keeping an eye on 21 Marion to see if anything happens with it before the deadline for that grant expires. The last item I have is the bird sanctuary observation deck. We're very frustrated with this contractor. He has not returned the signed contracts that were sent to him on May 6th. And he keeps putting us off as to when he's going to start. He said now that he is ready to start as soon as his insurance company gets his insurance certificates, which is part of the package that was sent to him on May 6th. He needs to submit signed contracts, insurance certificates, and bonds. And he has not submitted anything back from May 6th. So as soon as we get that, he can start. If he starts without signed contracts, if he starts without insurance, I would suggest we shut him down. You have to have insurance certificates and bonds. But if he starts without a signed contract, that's on him, because without a signed contract, we don't technically have to pay him. So that's in his interest to get us back to signed contracts. But at any rate, he's not been very cooperative or responsive. It takes about 8 texts and several phone calls for him to return anything. But we will keep after him and try to get things moving there.
Thank you. Did you have anything else, Mr.
No, that's it for
Gilliland?
me. That's it for me.
Okay. Mr. Thielacker.
Yeah, I just have one thing. I got word back from the supplier for the Avonwell playground that our piece of playground equipment for over there will not be shipped till after the first of the year due to supply chain issues. So I just want to let everybody know that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the last part is the committee business report. I think we've gone over most of the items on here. I know there was some Siemens work already done on the heating and furnace repairs at the Westinghouse Lodge. And okay, so we have an architect coming on Friday. Is that correct, Mr. Morris?
Yes, one, I was able to get a hold of one. I'm still trying to contact the second.
Okay, thank you. If there's nothing else, any other comments?
Nope.
that's the end of my report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I have public safety up next, and I'm okay to start if everyone else is, and Mr. Vaoki is ready.
Good night,
Um,
everyone.
Good night.
Right.
Two items I have. One is a minor issue, but I just want to bring it up because of a recent ordinance that was passed by council. Ordinance 1090 restricted parking in borough lots at the municipal building and the rec lodge. And I don't know if you want to do anything about this, but there is a truck that parks here in our municipal building all the time from the Pennsylvania Game Commission. And when the truck is not there, the person who is driving that truck, I guess, parks their personal vehicle there. We've ignored it generally, except that they've parked a couple of times in the employee portion of the lot and other places, and we've sent them a note indicating that there was a restriction there. But they've moved it back to the part of the lot close to the shopping center. I only bring it up because, again, council passed this ordinance the last couple of years about restricting parking in borough lots, including long-term or overnight parking. I don't know if you want anybody to do anything about it. That's the reason why I wanted to raise it.
I would suggest contacting the game commission. So whoever that person works for, they need to be notified. I think it's a matter of courtesy that they let the borough know that they're parking there.
But otherwise, let them alone and park there.
If their story checks out, I'd let them park there, but I'd like to know why they haven't had the courtesy to contact the borough.
Okay. I'll do that. The other item I have again is capital improvements plans item. I've given you a copy of that attached. And I will bring it up on the screen here real quick. So that if you want to discuss it, you can. All the packets that the projects that were in that packet from August, I've summarized in this spreadsheet. Public safety is volunteer fire department related, and then police items were items that were submitted by the chief or other members of the department, I think through the chief. I won't repeat what I said before. I'm just going to stop.
Mr. Morris,
Yeah.
on that item under the fire department,
Yeah.
wouldn't that be more appropriate under borough property?
Well, yeah, it could be. I guess it's just that's when they returned the fire department a couple of years back to this, it had been eliminated from the capital plan and it was returned. I was told to put it here under public safety.
Okay.
And that's the reason why I continued it.
I mean, it probably doesn't matter, but it just seemed like it would be more appropriate in that location. But either way, it's fine.
It's fine with me. I don't have anything to add to this other than it's a plan that you're putting together. You need to decide whether you like what's there, whether you want to talk about it another month after having seen the plans in the projects rather in August. If you want to extend it another month, if you want to make any recommendations to Finance Committee. I just need a direction from the committee. It's Public Safety Committee.
Okay.
That's all I have. If nobody has anything, I'll continue it if you don't have any comments at this time on it.
Sounds like no comments.
Okay.
No problem.
Okay, Mr. Morris, is that complete?
That's all I have then. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. The EMS report and the police report are attached. Everyone can read that. We do have the chief's report. Chief Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Biucci. First off, I'd like to say I was able to secure another vehicle. I had mentioned that at the previous meeting with the 2022 vehicles. in place of a 2023, which the cost was really advanced in this next year. I think it was $7,000 for an increase. So we will be able to get our white marked police car this year. That was not the one we originally had ordered. The one we had ordered is the one that's well behind schedule, and we aren't going to get this year probably. That would be the unmarked vehicle to replace the Dodge Charger. So based on that information, we would trade in the code car that's a 2012 that has substantial mileage, and based on the code officer's information, he said he's having some issues possibly with the transmission with that vehicle. So the new vehicle that we would receive for this year would now instead be a marked vehicle that we would replace and trade the code car for. And then next year we would replace the unmarked car with the car that's supposed to be here, or was supposed to be here in May, and obviously probably will not be here until after January. So rather than getting a 23 vehicle, we would probably end up with 222 vehicles. But in the end, we would save $7,000 based on the cost. The company who we deal with for these vehicles is a CoStar company, but he has been somebody that we've been dealing with for the last 2 years, and he's willing to give us the price based on the 22 price rather than raise it, which unfortunately they're going to be doing that as well. So if you're agreeable to that, I would ask for a new vehicle for 23 that would actually be the vehicle that was supposed to come this year but won't. So we already have the money in place for this year's vehicle based on the approval from last year. So I just wanted to talk about that. If you have any questions, please ask now. I can hopefully answer them.
I have none. Anyone else?
No, nothing.
No, I don't.
All right, very well. Secondly, I can tell you that over this past weekend, our department, along with all the East DUI traffic task force, was out throughout their communities as well as ours, and we did make a few stops and a few arrests and tickets and some other contacts with people. One of the stops was not only a DUI, but it ended up being a drug-related seizure along with a stolen firearm that was recovered. So it's not just simply a DUI that we'll arrest sometimes in these stops, but we end up with a whole lot more issues that come along with that. So again, the reason we get that money is because we go out and we patrol the areas, and most of this patrol was on Route 30, so Audubon Boulevard. Again, we still have traffic out there even with the current construction, but as you know, we've had some accidents, and we've had a lot more of them that were DUI related lately. So this helps us with that as well. That's all I have.
Okay. Thank you for keeping us safe out there. Is there any objection to the vehicle transfers and swaps? If there isn't, then I think that should go forward. Mr. Morris, does that need to go for a vote?
The one was already approved, correct, Chief?
Yes, it would be the 23 would be asking. It was the car for 23 that will actually be a 22. And I'll bring that up at a regular meeting for your approval.
Okay,
But
so
with a quote for that car as well.
I'll talk to Chuck about when he wants it on the agenda, whether it be September or later. And
Okay.
then we'll put it on there as a motion.
All right, thank you.
Thank you all.
Yeah, I don't believe the Chief Colella is on. Assistant Chief Thielacker, you have a report?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Chief Colella and 3 other fellas from the truck committee are up at Wisconsin looking at the new ladder truck and also our rescue pumper. So they'll be back late Thursday night. They're doing like an inspection. The trucks are basically done. They're running them. And I talked to my son today, and they found a couple little things. So probably within a couple weeks, they will get delivered to our local truck representative, Glick, up in Cranberry. And then we will be going over getting where all the equipment's going to get mounted on them. That's all I really have.
Okay. Thank you, Assistant Chief Thielacker.
I have a question.
Yes.
Jimmy, if you can just give us an update, a little bit more detail on what kinds of things they look for before receiving a truck?
Well, we set up specifications on both on the borough's ladder truck that you're purchasing for us and also on our rescue pumper. And they did the ladder truck today, and they caught a couple things, like all the compartments were supposed to be lockable, and they weren't able to be lockable. So they have to change that. There was a couple issues with some lettering, and really it was only little minor stuff, but they're just like matching up a set of specs, like what I do with a public works truck. You know, whenever, before we take acceptance for it, you check to make sure everything's there and built the way you wanted it.
Good job. Thank you.
Okay. Next is our committee business report. I'd like to take these out of order, if that's okay. The first thing, I'd like to go to B, which is the traffic regulations and traffic calming. I have been looking at some of that information. I'd like to carry this over into the next committee meeting, but in the interim, there are some things that I've identified here that I will be submitting a budget for in terms of traffic calming. That includes some signs. It includes some traffic driver feedback signs as well, and a couple of other items.
Angela, can I comment now, or what do you want to do?
Yeah, I was going to wait until we got to the item A, if that's okay.
Okay. All right. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any other questions on that, B? The next item is fire hydrant maintenance. I've been having a discussion with a representative from Wilkins Penn Joint, and we do get the fire hydrants are flushed twice a year, but what they do not do is flow testing. Now, we have 170 fire hydrants in the borough, and flow testing is recommended every 3 to 5 years. And unless they're requested, they do not do the flow testing. If you are driving around, you see fire hydrants, you will note that the caps of the fire hydrants are painted a different color. That color refers to the pressure and the flow rate for that particular fire hydrant. Now, it's unclear to me, well, let me back up for a minute. In order to do the testing, they have to use 3 fire hydrants. 2 that they open 2 and they test the pressure on the one in the middle. So it's unclear to me, out of that 170, how many hydrants we need to have tested. I am still working with, again, the representative to try to identify that number. But suffice it to say that I would like to include that again in the general budget for the coming year and future years. The testing for each hydrant is $250 per hydrant. So once I have a firm price on that, I will be submitting that as well. Any questions on that?
No.
Okay. The final item is the traffic warning signs. I have been looking at some alternative signage for the borough, such as for child safety. We need some signs for speed limits and for pedestrian safety, etc. But Mr. Burley would like to speak to some of the warning signs.
Thank you, Angelo. Thank you very much. I was a school teacher for about 5 or 6 years, and I love kids. And one of the main things that we need to focus on is protecting our kids. And I think putting up proper signs, buses stopping at the right location with, the proper protection they offer. And I really am concerned that we haven't gotten our signs up to show that we care about kids as well. I think that there's some signs that we've looked at and some signs we've considered, but we haven't selected anything to get started with. And I just really am concerned that something's going to happen. I mean, I'd hate Chief to say, oh, wow, you know, this car was going too fast, didn't see the sign, and ran into a location where there were a bunch of kids walking. And I taught sixth grade, and I have a very special feeling toward kids that they a lot of times don't pay attention. And they have a tendency to put themselves in harm's way and not realizing it. So I'm willing to walk around, drive around the barrow and Angela has done that. And we're going to talk, Angela and I are going to talk further about how to get something going with the sons and the kids. So we don't have, we're talking about what we could do, what we should do. But I think that right now, especially, I wanted to do something before school started, but we are late. So I would like to have permission from the committee to start something that's action-based by walking around, talking to Chief, talking to the people at the school to find out where the bus stops are and what we need to do to protect our kids at the bus stops. And really, we're a little late, but better late than never. So I'd like to say to Angelo, can we get started with something that gets identification out there for these kids so that they will know where we're concerned about their safety. Their parents will know we're concerned about their kids' safety. And by doing this, we need to be on top of some type of signage, some type of identification of location, and it needs to be in the right location where the school buses make their stop, and that we need to be able to say we're doing the best we can to protect our kids. Right now, excuse me, I don't think we're doing that. And so I'd like to take it upon myself and Patty had it in her report regarding what to do in the school areas with the kids, and me in planning and development. I feel that at this point, there needs to be a plan together, which Angelo and I can put together to get started on some type of approach to help keep our kids safe.
Yeah, I'd like to add to Mr. Burley's comment that he has offered to contact the school and the school district and find out where the current bus stops are so that we can make sure that we get the signs there. He's already gotten approval for a grant to purchase those signs. And in addition, some of the signs about children at play, I think we need to buy those now. So I'm going to work up a purchase order, submit it to Mr. Morris. It may require a vote by council, but that'll be up to Mr. Morris to see if it's in the budget now or if we need to get council to approve additional funding.
Sounds great, Angelo. Great, great, great.
Anyone else on my committee have any questions or comments?
No, nothing to add.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Angelo.
Yes.
Angelo, I have a quick question if you don't mind.
Yes, sir.
So first of all, I wanted to just ask Chief Williams about what we've been doing since school has started back, especially on daylight, with regards to that, because it's part of an annual program that we typically do when school starts back, right? So Chuck, do you want to maybe take council through that just to educate the council and anybody else who may be listening to this meeting?
Okay. We're pretty familiar with where the bus stops are, and we know that the times of when they generally drive through. So we do have the ability to drive around, and actually sometimes we follow the buses to see what's going on. So it's not as though we don't know that kids are going to school and we don't know where they're going to be. We do tend to know that. Again, it would help. I know they changed some of the bus stops. I've actually been part of changing a lot of bus stops because we had some of them that were on Greensburg Pike, and that was a bad spot to have them. We moved them to a side street, and even on Ardmore, we had a few there where we were able to move them off to, the side street. Again, when you put a bus stop in a safer area, you're certainly going to reduce your risk. When you have a bus stop, for example, on Lenox, between the cars parked there and the bus, there's no cars passing the bus, so it's a safer move at that point. Again, we can't do 100% job of making sure everyone is going to do what they have to do, because we don't know what the drivers in a car are going to do, and we certainly don't know what the children are going to do if they're not really paying attention, which unfortunately does happen. But again, we are very well aware of that, and we do protect as much as we can on our end to try to be on the lookout for anything that may be unusual, because it's not just the vehicles, it could be other things that go along with that, with vehicles that may be suspicious and things like that. So we do spend a lot of time looking for those kinds of things as well. And again, in this earlier part of the year, when it's light out, it's a little easier. But as we get throughout this year, where the mornings are a little darker and it's a little harder to see, that's when we're even a little more concerned than we are right now. That's all.
Chief, I have a question.
Mhm.
When the bus stops, do you stay behind the bus until it pulls off and see what the kids are going to do, or do you pull off? How do you handle when kids get off the bus?
Generally, if it's me and my unmarked car, I stay there because I want to see what's going to happen.
Mhm.
I want to know how they're going to do when they get off. I want to see if any other people are going to, try to pass the bus. But again, on a lot of our streets where we have bus stops, the buses are very good at blocking the road to make sure no one can pass them. And some of the roads are so narrow with all the parked vehicles that no one could even possibly pass them. But again, my position when I drive around, especially in the morning, I tend to stay around the bus or behind it, because I want to see how everybody gets on and off. And, sometimes the kids do a little horseplay, and that's fine.
Right.
As long as they don't get out of control, it's all good. I think everybody just, if they're so happy and they're fooling around a little bit before they get on the bus, then at least they're going to school, and they're probably going to be in a better mood because of it.
Yes. And as a past school teacher, I can tell you that kids have their own mind of what they want to do. And a lot of times it's not in line with what they should do.
Mr. Mayor, did you have something else? Okay, I guess he does not.
So I just have a question for Angelo.
Yes, sir.
Angelo, can we sit down someday and plan on how we're going to put and go with the signage and put together something that we can start doing?
Yes, and I'd like to see if Chief Williams would participate as well, since he has a good handle on where those bus stops are.
Okay.
Okay. If there's nothing else, that concludes my committee report.
Okay. Last committee is operations and policy. Mr. Lawrence, I'm ready to start whenever you are.
Whenever you're ready.
Okay, 3 items. First item, just a reminder about committee vacancies. There is a vacancy on the rec board with the resignation of Mr. Ritchie. We don't have any candidates this time, so we are seeking candidates. There also are no alternates on that board right now, and there are 3 slots for alternates, so we're seeking candidates. An update on Savvy Citizen. We've risen to 1,347 followers at this time, with about 60% estimated to be Forest Hills residents. We continue to use that, of course, and if anybody sees something that we're missing, please let me know as I get used to it. Hopefully I'm getting used to it and getting stuff out there. The last item again is capital improvements projects for this committee. And once again, I'm not going to repeat everything I just said, but I will share the screen briefly. There is a spreadsheet that lists the items in this committee. There are 4 of them. The first one, comprehensive plan update, actually belongs to planning and zoning. So that'll be talked about with planning and zoning next week. But typically what we have under administration are things like furniture and equipment. Anything related to the new building is covered by the building fund. The codification is updated periodically. We're doing an update now. We try to wait until we get a number of ordinances and then we update again. Those are and then any computer upgrades we need to do, of course, they're also under this committee. I've asked the people who, the gentleman who does our IT for recommendations, and he assisted me with putting that projection together for that. So those are the three main things. I highlighted geographic information system only because we temporarily moved that to the corrective action budget. I've talked about that in the past, so I'm not going to go into detail about it again. We are required to have one as part of corrective action, as part of the sewer consent decrees. That's something that right now would be funded by corrective action if we need to do anything with it, and we do need to update it, but it's not something that needs to be necessarily mentioned here right now. So that's why I have it highlighted in yellow. I didn't want to forget it or ignore it. So other than that, I have nothing else to say about it. I just need this committee's direction about whether you want to continue to review from the projects that were submitted in August, or whether you want to move it on to Finance Committee from here.
Input from my committee members, I'd say move it on.
Okay.
Just one quick question,
Sure.
if I might. For the GIS software, you said that's under corrective action budget,
Right.
and there is a line item for that to purchase.
We haven't included it in there generally because we have it. All we're doing right now is upgrading what I have. I shouldn't say upgrading. We have a 1-year agreement every year for service on it and for any upgrades. But what I need upgraded from the engineer. My software essentially is fine, although Mike Joseph, our IT guy, is going to move that to the server. So we're in the process of doing that. It hasn't been scheduled yet, but the software basically is fine. It's the data that I need updated, and that has to come from the engineer. And for some reason, that isn't working correctly, and they're not able to figure it out. So that is an ongoing problem.
So essentially, you're identifying where the storm sewers are with this software.
Sewers, streets. There may be some other things on there too.
Are fire hydrants included in that?
You can. We don't have that on there right now,
Okay.
I don't believe. You can include almost anything you want to include on there.
The reason I ask that is that most municipalities have identified their locations of their fire hydrants. We do not have that because Wilkins Penn will not share that information since 9/11. So if we want that, we have to put it in ourselves.
Yeah, and I'm also limited in the fact that I can't get information in there until I get the update from the engineer. So we definitely need, and they're aware of that. And I brought it up to council a couple times too. That's one of the sticking points I need to have resolved, and maybe need a little bit more pressure on the engineer to do it or something, but we can talk about that at some other time. But when I go to the conference I'm going to later next week, ESRI, the company that does they're the top GIS company in the country. I plan on talking to them about other things we could add and what the costs of those packages would be, so I can have something more to give you.
Question?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Mr. DeMarco.
I wonder, is this something that is a limitation on our engineering firm, that their GIS system isn't compatible with ours?
I hesitate because I think this was something that was discussed in exec session, so I'm not sure if it's
Okay, thank
an
you.
exec session item or not.
Thank you.
Anything else?
I don't have anything else other than what I just mentioned. So if nobody has any questions for me, I'm finished.
Okay, I don't have anything for tonight, unless either of my committee members want to bring something up. I don't have anything. I could just create questions to keep this going all night, but I'll try not to.
No, thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it, Jack. I think we're good.
All right, it sounds like we're done.
Okay, next Tuesday night is the final 3 committees, and I will have Zoom out to you at least by Tuesday morning, but hopefully in advance of that, probably Monday, invitations. So that's all we have. Good night, everyone. See you on Tuesday evening.